So we ordered the Razer Blade 14 on release day, and Razer have actually got it to us in record time. It's here at least a week quicker than we were expecting. So tonight I'm looking forward to unboxing and taking a look around this new for 2023 Razer Blade 14 and checking out some of the thermals and the new features that we get this year. Now this comes in at an eye-watering $2,500 for the base spec that I've ordered. Now that's a crazy price for an RTX 4060 and a Ryzen processor. And its main competitor, the ROG G14, is much cheaper. But I've been rocking the 2021 Blade 14 now for a couple of years, and I've absolutely loved this laptop. It's so slim, compact, yet feels really solid and comes everywhere with me. Now my two biggest gripes with the 2021 version was firstly, it wasn't really bright enough at only 300 nits. I'm often working in bright environments. And secondly, it only comes with 16 gigabytes of RAM and it's soldered on. You cannot increase it. Now Razer have righted those wrongs this year, so I'm really excited. So although it's expensive, I'm looking forward to this one for myself. So enough of my waffling, let's start unboxing. So first things first, we've got the power supply and power leads. This is boxed like pretty much every other Razer that I've received lately. Box within a box and the power supply separately. Now, as I pre-ordered from the Razer store, I actually also got a nice JoyPlot skin with it as well. So we'll be applying that skin and showing that on the channel soon as well. I will put a link directly to this model on the Razer website. If you do buy it quickly, you should also get that skin, which is a nice little touch. So firstly, I'm going to take this power supply out, UK power lead, and a typical Razer power adapter. This is the standard 230 watt. I was hoping we'd get a new 230 watt GAN charger like we've got with the 330 and 280 watt GAN charger, which would have made it smaller. That's a real shame. Now onto the laptop itself. So you can see the packaging. This is all nice card to hopefully make things a bit more environmentally friendly. Got a little pull tab on the laptop itself. Take the laptop, put it to the side and see what else we've got. This little Razer packet here, and inside, thank you for choosing Razer. Sign message, Razer Blade 14, little guide there. We've got the Razer stickers, and lastly, we've got the cleaning cloth. Now you want to keep that because these things are fingerprint magnets. Let's get rid of that for a sec. All right, so let's get to unboxing. You can see now that we've got, again, like most of the laptops these days, sort of a paper wrapping rather than the plastic that you used to get. And wow, that feels lovely. There's the new Blade 14. Now this year, they have made it very slightly thicker than the previous Blade 14, and you can just about see that. And you can also see, hopefully on the overhead cam here, because we've now got a 16:10 screen, the actual laptop is a little deeper, as you'd expect, because obviously we've got that bigger panel. But when looking at the dimensions, it did say that it is slightly slimmer on a width basis, by about a centimetre. So if I put them side by side there, like you can see, I don't know if you can see that, there's a good centimetre difference on the width of the new Blade 14. So although it is a little bit deeper, it's actually just as compact as the previous model. And despite being thicker, and obviously I'm hoping bigger fans in here, it's only 60 grams heavier, so realistically, picking them both up, you can't notice a difference in the weight. Now, before we open the laptop, we're going to take a quick look at the ports in case you haven't seen a Razer Blade 14 before. On the left-hand side, we've got the headset jack, a USB 4 port, a USB 3 Type A, and the Razer power jack adapter. And if I spin it to the other side, we've got a Kensington lock, which is really unusual on a consumer laptop. So if you're in an office environment, you can lock them into place. We've got an HDMI 2.1, another USB 3 Type A, and another USB 4. So pretty much exactly the same ports as the 2022 model Razer Blade. But I believe on the 2022 model Razer Blade, when it first came out, the USB 4 ports weren't enabled. They were just USB-C. You had to enable those, I believe, via BIOS later in the year. These are straight out USB 4. Both the USB 4 ports should also have power delivery, so we will be testing those in the full review. Now, as I say, this is an unboxing and first impressions tonight, so we won't be able to cover everything. We've only got this unit in today. So please make sure, if you're not already subscribed, please consider subscribing, because a full review will be coming very shortly. Now let's open up and take a look inside. So as usual, we've got just a little screen protector between the keyboard and the display. And then we've got just the THX logo and a nice Ryzen sticker on the palm rest. Now you can see here, because we've got a slightly deeper laptop, we've got a very big palm rest. So if I just compare that, and I mean, it's already a good sized touchpad on the previous Razer Blade 14, but you can see this year just how much bigger the new touchpad is. It's absolutely massive. And I really love that. I love having a decent sized touchpad, especially on a portable laptop like this that you probably will be quite regularly using on your lap. Now, as we look up to the keyboard, you can see that the keyboard layout is exactly the same as the previous Razer Blade 14s. It feels slightly less mushy than the previous 2021 Razer Blade 14s, a little bit crisper keys. That's quite nice. And as we look either side of the actual keyboards, you can see, whereas before you used to have the old mesh grille, which I was never a big fan of, used to like attract dirt and didn't look great. We've now got the sort of the milled aluminium grille here that you've got on the Blade 16 that we've recently reviewed, and I think that looks much more professional. As you look to the screen, you can see it sits slightly higher because we've got this new 16:10 display. We've got a little webcam shutter if you bother about privacy, so you can turn your webcam on and off. Right, now we've looked around the laptop. I'm going to quickly fire this up and install Windows. We're going to come back and we're going to test it out. So we've set up Windows. We're now back. As you can see, the laptop is on with the new default Razer wallpaper. Now, first things first, I've got to say this screen is absolutely amazing. Not only is it 500 nits of brightness, which is what I was really hoping for after the previous version, which is only just over 300 nits, but we've got the 16:10 QHD Plus resolution, which is 2560 by 1600, just like that Razer Blade 16 I reviewed a little while ago, but obviously in a much more pixel dense 14-inch. Now, my initial impressions, the colours seem great and the screen does seem fast, but we will properly test it for the full review. And also this touchpad and keyboards. The keyboard feels just as amazing as most Razer Blade touchpads do. They are definitely one of my favourite Windows touchpads, and now this is even bigger. Been mucking around with it for the last half hour or so, and it just feels so responsive, and it's the bigger area on this 14-inch is really handy. It's really useful. Now, the keyboard itself, you've got the same layout as the previous Razer Blade 14s. So you've got a standard Razer keyboard with no number pad, but it is a little bit cramped on the right-hand side to fit it in the 14-inch chassis. But the keys themselves this year, they do feel a little bit more tactile than the previous 2021 and 2022 Razer Blade 14s. It's a much nicer typing experience. You still don't have that amazing depth that you would have on an older style keyboard, but for these chiclet style keys, this one is pretty good. Now, because I'm in the UK, you may notice that my secondary functions aren't lit. If you're in America or most other parts of the world, you will get the secondary functions lit. But in Europe and the UK, unfortunately, we don't. And it's something that really annoys me about Razer. I don't understand why they don't do it for us, but this is what we have to put up with. Now, obviously, I've not had time to test the battery life, and I won't be doing the webcam and speakers in this video, but that will all be in the full review. But I have taken the base plate off to look inside the laptop, and with usual Razer style, it's only 8 T5 screws and the base plate slips right off. Very easy to access the internals as per all other Razer Blades. Now, once we're inside, you can see straight away we've got an 18mm M.2 SSD. It came with a 1TB Samsung Fast Gen 4 drive. We've also got an upgradable Wi-Fi card, which is quite nice, but I don't think I've ever upgraded a Wi-Fi card on a laptop. Then under this bit of protective plastic, you'll see we've got the 2 upgradable RAM sticks. Now, we've only got 16GB, so 2x8 sticks in here, but they are running at 5600 megahertz. But we will be upgrading to 64GB of RAM and hopefully a 4TB if it all fits. So make sure you keep an eye out for that video. And as always with Razer Blades, you can see we've got the 2-fan setup with a large vapor chamber, taking all that heat from the thin chassis out the back of the machine. Now, obviously being a 14-inch, there are some slight compromises with only one M.2 SSD. If you buy the 15-inch, the 16-inch, or the 18-inch, you do get 2. But being such a small chassis, you are very limited with what you can fit in here. But personally, this year, it's a massive upgrade that we can at least upgrade that RAM. Because 16GB in the previous years, that wasn't enough for me. And it was fine for light gaming, but it wasn't fine for my everyday workload. So this is why I'm really excited to get this new model in. Right, so let's put it back together and move through to the performance section. I'm not going to be doing the full range of testing in this first impressions video, but I did complete a run of Cinebench R23 on the maximum performance mode. And the good news is, this new cooling system in this year's Razer Blade 14 does a great job with this CPU. It managed to run 4.7 GHz on all cores throughout the entire Cinebench R23 10-minute test. That's quite a torture test as well. Now it did get up to 50 decibels during that test in the max performance profile, but we got a great score of 17,500 out of this Ryzen chip. Now that's not as good as the newer Intel 13th generation CPUs like the 13900HX, but you've got to bear in mind this is a tiny 14-inch chassis. There's got to be some compromises, and this more efficient Ryzen chip fits perfectly with this machine. And then firing up Time Spy, this is the base model, but it still did incredibly well. The 4060 scored 10,500 points in its maximum performance profile, which is really impressive for a 4060. This is one of the base cards from the NVIDIA range. Now there has been a lot of controversy that Razer have touted that this 140 watt GPU for the 4060 and the 4070. And yes, it is listed as a 140 watt TGP in the card, but I've not once hit it yet. During my Time Spy run, on the mixed load CPU and GPU test, it was hitting about 95 watts. And then in the actual pure GPU sections, we were hitting about 110 watts, which is still quite a way away from that 140 watts. But in all honesty, these cards, they seem to do well at between 100 and 110 watts anyway. I don't think you'd get much of an improvement at 140 watts. And my 10,300 GPU score on this 4060 is one of the best scores I've got from a 4060 yet. Another interesting point is when I ran it in the different profiles, so balanced and silence, although they made quite a difference to the actual noise of the laptop, there wasn't a great deal of difference between the actual performance. So that's something I will talk about much more in depth in the main review, but you can actually run this in silent mode very quietly and still have great performance. So with the synthetic benchmarks out of the way, I want to just quickly fire up some gaming and just have a look at some of the external temperatures and the fan noises on this laptop. Okay, so we've been playing a few games now. I've just fired up Apex Legends just so you can see the performance in game. I'm running the absolute custom max setting, so hopefully this will give you an idea of just how well the game plays. Now you can hear the fan noise has already kicked in. It's pretty much constant, so it's not revving up and down, which is nice, but it is quite loud in the maximum settings. Now we can see here we're running at about 91, 92 watts and about 122 to 125 frames per second, and we've got it completely maxed out in Apex Legends, although it's not the most demanding of games. Okay, so I'm going to take a second now and just quickly record the decibel meter, just to give you an idea how loud it is. So that's about 55 decibels on its maximum performance mode. So it's quite a bit loud. If you put it in balance, I was finding it was about 45 to 50. So this is the maximum noise the laptop will make. But the one thing that I've noticed is absolutely amazing compared to my previous 2021 Razer Blade 14 is that the actual palm rest is so much cooler and the keyboard stays cool as well. My Razer Blade 14 from 2021, which was the 3070 model, that was absolutely roasting around the palm rest area. So I've had a few games now. I'm going to just quickly show you the temperatures. So you can see here across the keyboard, 29 to 40, just past the center of the keyboard, back off into the 30s again. And the left palm rest where you sit your hand, it's 36. So it's warm, but it's not hot. Now the hot spot of the laptop is obviously at the top where it's venting that hot air out. And you can see here we get about 46 degrees. So again, quite hot, but I have used way hotter Razer Blades in the past. But the screen is absolutely fantastic. So this is running at the 1600p native resolution. Absolutely no problems with this 4060 driving that resolution on Apex. Obviously, if you're using a more demanding title, you may have to drop some settings or use frame generation. I'm mostly an esports player anyway, so these sort of games are perfect for me. So I'm quite happy with the 4060. And what I do love is how bright the screen is, especially compared to last year's model. Last year I really struggled with the 300 nit panel because I have quite a bright kitchen where I often play. So there we go. Gaming on the Razer Blade 14 really is a great experience. So that takes me through to the conclusion. Now I know everyone's going to instantly say this laptop is way too expensive for the actual spec of the machine that you're getting. And I have to be honest, yes it is. It is an incredibly expensive laptop. You're really paying the Razer tax for this machine. But if, like me, you're looking for a very portable, compact, but rugged laptop, this really does fit the bill. It feels amazing. It's a great all-round unit with a much better screen than last year. Great speakers, great feeling trackpad and keyboard, and good performance. It's not amazing because you've only got a 4060 or 4070. Would have been nice if they'd have tried putting 4080 in here like the G14. But if you can live with a 4060 or 4070, You're getting great CPU performance to go along it in this compact chassis. And it's not hot and it's not loud. And that for me is really important. Now, I'm also looking forward to testing out the battery life to see what I can get out of this machine, see if it can actually last me for a full day's work of light use. But so far, I'm really impressed. This can easily replace my 2021 Razer Blade 14. Now, as always, I'd love to know what you guys think. Do you think Razer are absolutely crazy bringing this out at £2,500? Or do you think it is actually worth the money for such a lovely, compact little unit? Put your thoughts in the comment section down below and I will get back to you. And as always, thanks for watching.